go for a ride. Get your spot. Come on. You ready to go for a ride? I think she's ready. Let's head on out to Umatilla. We're heading out to D&J apiaries, out towards the villages. It's not in the villages, it's in Umatilla, I believe. Got the little wiener dog with me. She's already had her fill of drive time, so I let her on my laps to keep her anxiety down. Alright, so while we're on our way out here, I talked just a little bit about why I got into, why I'm making the plunge into beekeeping. Now, I've been dabbling in the information of what it takes to start up beekeeping, but I don't really know what it was that kept me from doing it. It is a little bit of a commitment, but it's talking to other beekeepers in my area and you know, some forums that I've read online. It doesn't seem like it's going to be too hard. Bees are pretty self-sustaining and they are going to do what they want to do. You just have to check up on them, make sure they're doing okay, and treat them for any kind of diseases, which will be later on in another video. It won't be here because I'm not nearly as versed on that kind of information. Now, what I'm doing is I'm heading out to Umatilla here to pick up my unassembled beehives, and there are different options of those. There are 8 frames and 10 frames, which are the most common. 10 frames are definitely the more commercial, more like I said, the most popular. There are 5 different frame sizes, but for the sake of the beginning beekeeper, you really only want to look into 8 frames and 10 frames. Now, there's a completely different type of hive that isn't called a Langstroth. Langstroth is the industry standard, and there's another one called a top bar hive, which I built, and I captured some bees from the ground, and those are what you'll hear Shelly talk about a little bit more later on in this video. Now, the interesting thing about bees, and when you buy them in the mail, you can buy them in the mail and they will go through the US Postal Service, no problems at all. But the interesting thing about the 2 different options are the nukes, or in other words, a nucleus colony, which is a small starter colony. They come in a package that is pretty user-friendly. I believe they're a little bit more expensive. They come in a box with frames in them already, and when you get into setting up your hive, you're going to literally just take the frames out of the nucleus colony box that you buy and put them in your frames, into your Langstroth hive that you have assembled at home. Now, there's another option, and it's a box of bees. It's literally a wooden box with 2 sides of it open, almost like the screening that you'd find on a patio. And there's a hole in the top and a can of sugar water syrup for them to feed off of in transit. And it's going to have a little queen in there. It's going to have a little piece of candy or a marshmallow in it that you replace the cork with, that holds the queen into the tiny little box, and it will basically be a way for you to introduce the queen into the colony of your beehive, that the other worker bees will eat that candy away and then release the queen into the colony. Now, we're not going to be doing that because those are a little bit more work and they're not really set up for you know, an introduction into their new hive. They're going to have to acclimate themselves into the new hive that they have, that you've provided them with, and they're going to have to start doing what we call drawing comb out. There's going to be frames in the beehive, and they're going to have to produce wax and put it on the frames that are in the bee colony, in the beehive, which will then become the bee colony. Excuse my improper usage of terminology in the beekeeping world here. Like I said, I am a beginner. So those two are the options, the most common options of getting your bee colony. Now, there are some other options that are more advanced, and those will not be explored in this video. But they include things like capturing a wild swarm in the woods with a bee trap that I'll show you here in a minute in the warehouse portion of D&J apiaries. And by the time you've gotten a few colonies set up, maybe it would be an interesting endeavor to take on that kind of adventure, capturing a wild swarm. You run into some problems with those with different types of breeds. You don't really know what breed of bee you're getting. They could be Africanized, and those are very aggressive. While they'll make honey, they're not fun to work with, and they'll defend their colony vigorously. Now, what do I mean by defend their colony vigorously? I mean they'll sting the crap out of you, and they won't stop. They're relentless. So those are really aggressive, not good to have around any kind of a environment where there's going to be people around, like a backyard, or they're just not fun to work with. Its return on investment is too low. So it's one of those things that you really have to know what you're doing if you find an Africanized bee colony and you requeen it with a more docile queen. The queen is basically the brain of the colony, and whatever she acts like determines the culture of the entire colony. So that, like I said, is a lot of work for an Africanized colony. The bees that I'm going to put a deposit down on are Italian bees, and those are much more docile, and they just want to make honey. That's all they want to do, and they're, relatively speaking, in terms of bees, they're very docile. Alright folks, so we're here at D&J Apiaries in Umatilla, Florida, which is technically in Marion County, but I guess that's irrelevant. We are here today. It's by the rotation of the sun and the earth together. It seems to be high noon, as you can see. Very, very hot and bright out. But it's just your standard steel building, nothing super fancy, but I'm here today to go get my bees, deposit down on my bees, and pick up a few pieces from my Langstroth hives. Let's go on inside. Alright guys, Chef Nick here. I'm inside with Shelly and Steven. Yeah. So some questions that I had when I started out on this adventure getting into beekeeping was, how do I get bees? So Shelly here is just giving me some information on how you can get into beekeeping, and there are a couple of different options on how you can get your bees. You want to tell?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of different ways. I would recommend people start with a Langstroth colony. It's a traditional 10-frame box. You have to buy a top and a bottom. And if you want to get bees, go to like one of your local beekeepers. Go to a local person that you know that has bees in your area. It's kind of like breeds of dogs. If you want to buy a Siberian Husky, you probably need to be in Alaska, not Florida. Right. Kind of the same thing with bees. You want to get an Italian race of bees, a Cordovan or Canolian, something like that. That's going to be local to Florida. So go to a Florida beekeeper, get with Florida bees instead of getting bees from up north.
And they're going to be acclimated to any kind of
Absolutely. And most everybody that's going to buy bees from a reputable beekeeper is going to have the correct bees for that you want to do. You want a gentle bee, the one that makes honey. You don't want an aggressive strain of bee.
Right.
And that's what the people are going to sell you, because they want you to come back. Obviously, they want you to come back and get more stuff.
And one thing I tell you guys to really take this advice is not to try to capture a swarm like I tried when I first got into this, because there's going to be some difficulties with the queen. I got mine out of the ground. Yeah. What do you know about those?
And ground bees they're opportunistic. All they want to do is it's a swarm that's swarmed off of from whatever race of bee. It's kind of like if you're raising prize poodles and then somebody tells you, hey, I've got a free poodle on the side of the road, do you want to go get the poodle? Well, no, you're not going to bring it home and breed it with your poodle, right? So, I mean, same thing. If you want to have a good race of bee, don't go pick up the generic colony on the side of the road, you don't know what genetics it have. Especially if you're brand new and beginning, then you don't want to start with a brace of bees that you have no idea. They might have jumped off a truck heading to New York, and it might be a Russian stock that you don't want.
Right.
And there's if you do that way, if you do start off that way, there's ways that you can go around that with requeening, so on and so forth. If you want to get started, go to a reputable person, get bees from a reputable company that's been around for a long time, and they're going to walk you through the process.
So yeah, they're also going to have information on what's happening in your area as far as plants, which is what bees feed off of. They're going to get the nectar and the pollen from the flowers. They're going to know all about what's in season.
Yep.
So all these little details that you may not think about are definitely what you're here for.
Absolutely, that's what we do.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we do. Here at D&J, we're actually commercial beekeepers. We run 3,500 colonies of our own. And we also have a full retail. Yeah, exactly. And we also have a full line retail store. We teach classes. We teach beginning beekeeping classes to students that don't know anything about bees. A shameless plug. But we actually,
that's why we're here.
But we're right here in Florida, and this is what we do for a living. So I want you to be successful because it makes me successful.
Right.
So I have a vested interest in you being successful.
It's a beneficial.
Absolutely.
Right.
Real supply stores should look like, not out of the back of a truck. I've seen a lot of beekeepers try to do supplies like out of the back of a truck. I really have. But this is kind of what a bee supply store is supposed to be. So this is kind of this is our warehouse. So we keep all of our items that we sell for sale in the store. This is all of our unassembled boxes. There's a lot. There's actually 5 sizes in beekeeping equipment. We mostly handle the main 2, which is a 10 frame box, which is a 9 and 5/8, which is a deep box, and then a 6 and 5/8, which they call a medium or an Illinois box. Those are the 2 most popular sizes, and I would recommend you stay with the 2 most popular sizes. Everybody's going to carry them. So this is our unassembled boxes, and then we have our frames.
The parts are interchangeable on those?
Yeah, exactly right. The sizes are the same. That's why you want to stick with the 2 main sizes. That way, if you're buying equipment, you know what to buy, or if you're selling, you know what you're selling. If you run the oddball stuff, it doesn't really interchange well.
What do you got over here? Is this honey?
Yeah, this is all for our 5 frame nuke stuff. So when you're buying nuke boxes, you actually can buy 5 frame wooden nuke boxes, and this is all this. It's just a smaller size. It's the same depth. It's just a different height. And then this is actually corn syrup for feeding bees. People come and they buy 5-gallon buckets to feed their bees with, or they bring totes. Commercial guys bring totes. This is what we use to feed with. And our assembled boxes.
You'd have to feed your bees.
Yes.
During certain times of the year when there's not enough pollen, or
it's just like any other animal. They have to have food, water, shelter, space, just like anything else. It's not that complicated, but people tend to overcomplicate it and think that they can go and forage all year long and get what they need, and that's not the truth. To see, this is some of our jackets and suits and some of our assembled frames on this side. This is all of our unassembled stuff that goes with the unassembled boxes, unassembled frames, top bars, bottom bars. This whole section here is nothing but bottling. So when you come and you actually make honey, you can come and bottle your honey. Buy the bottles here and get your caps and everything right here. Kind of a one-stop shop, if it makes sense to you that way. We do have a little bit of 8 frame stuff. 8 frame is kind of popular up north. Some people run it down here, but it's not real popular, so we just keep a limited supply of it.
Okay.
So we do have 8 frame stuff, just not a lot.
Now what is this over here? Is this
swarm traps? So yeah, if you have a swarm like in a tree or something to that effect, you can actually nail this up to the tree. It's got grommets punched out, so you actually can hang it from the tree with fishing line or however you want to, and it just hangs up in a tree.
And this is a little bit more advanced, not
exactly right.
something
This
for the
is
beginner.
after you already have bees and you've been established for a while, and someone calls you up and says, "Hey, I've got a wild swarm." You know what to do with it.
Okay. Now I see this thing over here. Is this an extractor?
Yep, but this is actually a honey tank.
Oh,
and
okay.
The extractors over here in these boxes. And then these are your tops and bottoms. Different variety of PVC versus wood, metal tops versus plywood tops. Just kind of depending on whatever you want to do. This is where we're actually set up to teach classes. So we actually have a projector and everything. We actually run this, and this is where we teach people how to become beekeepers.
And how often do you guys do these classes?
We try to do at least 3 classes a season, so 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall, but we'll do as many as we have to make sure everybody is taken care of.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
And You guys do anything with kids, or is it just people who are?
Mostly just people that we can do classes for kids, but most kids don't understand. They don't want to get into bee. They just have simple questions like, how often do you get stung? And that's easy questions to answer. But this is more for people who actually want to get started in beekeeping, and it takes up a lot of time to teach people how to do bees. And so it's one of those things that we don't have a lot of time when we're working in the store to sit and take 2 hours and talk to kids. So if you want to do something with kids, I'd say get one of your local bee clubs. That's what they do. They have extension centers, they have outreach programs, and that's what they do as a club.
Cool.
YouTube man? YouTube man. Are you a YouTube man? Oh, yes. They're going to come in a nuke box just like this. Oh, you filmed me? Oh, sorry. So, yeah, they're going to come in just like this. There's going to be 5 frames in here. So what you're going to do is you're going to push, you have the 10 frames, so you just have to push and just take a couple of them out. So you have 3 on one side, 2 on the other. And then you're going to install, so we're going to pretend these have bees on them.
Okay.
And we're going to pretend there's 5 of them. So what you do is you actually just take your hive tool and you slide them apart. And you pick it up very, very carefully and you put it in the box.
Okay.
Just like this. Okay? Then you take the next one right next to it, separate it out, and you're going to slide them apart. You don't want to rub them and just jerk the frames up, because then you have a problem with rolling bees, and you actually kill bees that way.
Okay.
So slide them apart is very important. So slide them apart, and then pick it up, and then keep them in the exact same order. Don't mix the order up. Match the comb up, and you'll see they're going to be a little thick because they have comb on them. So match the comb up and try to put them back exactly the way you bring them out of the nuke. And then take that last one out. And the important thing is take this nuke box and take it away, because this smells like home now. So you're going to take this and remove it from the area. Okay. Because you want them to live here now. Make sense?
Yes.
They work on smell. So you're removing home, putting them in a new home.
Will I use a reducer to
Yes,
keep
use a
them in
reducer. Yeah, I mean, you'll have your feeder already all set up as well, because you're going to feed them, because you have to draw that comb out. The ones I give you are going to have comb on it. These are going to be empty, just like this. And you have to draw that out with comb, and you have to feed them to draw that comb out. You want it to draw thick. So you want to feed them sugar water.
And again, 6 pounds of honey for 1 pound of wax. 6 pounds of honey
and make 1 pound of wax. So you have to feed them 6 pounds of honey for them to, just to make 1 pound of wax. And each frame is about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. You have to draw 5 of those. It's going to be a lot of honey. Okay? So
but that's going to set you up for success.
Exactly right. Once you draw that comb is valuable. Cherish that comb with everything you've got, because then you won't have to draw it again. Why?
So right now I just asked her what the inner cover is right here that has this hole underneath the lid.
Yes. So we get this question a lot, actually. The inner cover works with the telescoping cover. You can use them without, but you should not, and here's why. Now, on your inner cover, you're going to have a shallow side and a deep side. The deep side goes down towards the bees. Okay? What that does, that allows the bees to crawl from frame to frame on the top, instead of going all the way down to the bottom underneath and then come all the way back up. So it's easier for the bees to crawl from frame to frame this way. They're going to glue this down with their propolis. So when you go to open the box, you use your hive tool, break the propolis, get into the beehive. If you have your telescoping cover that you're using without the inner cover, they're going to glue this box down. How you get the top off. You're going to have to break the box open and push it up from the bottom, which you don't want to do. So this is just a cover for rain protection for the box itself. This is what you want the bees to glue down that you open the box with. Make sense? That's why the inner cover is important.
All right, so that was very informative. Even though it's a superstore of beekeeping goods. Sorry, I got all of my goods right there. I've got all of my goods right there. I got them unassembled, and we're gonna go home and put them together.